Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3. Now unfortunately, at this point in time, RPCS3 on Windows has not been updated, and that's because of Microsoft. Microsoft has still not fixed the issue with Visual Studios. Anyways here, RPCS3 though has made some improvements. So first and foremost, the team over at RPCS3 has fixed an issue where controllers other than the DualShock 3 would vibrate non-stop. And this was due to the PS3's DualShock 3 controller ignoring vibrate motor values below 63. And this is fixed as of version 0.0.37-18136. Secondly, and also with controllers, they fixed a crash that could happen when a controller was disconnected due to reasons such as inactivity or due to running out of battery. And thirdly here, if you're interested in emulation and the developer side of things and hearing from a developer, What a Cookie has you covered. They've got a brand new video that's 20 minutes and 47 seconds long titled No AVX 512 is Power Efficient. Everything in the video is timestamped, and although it's highly technical, I think What a Cookie does a good job explaining things. They talk about stuff like power efficiency and frequency scaling and even more. And one thing I also like is they don't hide their sources. All of the links are in the description below. And if you're interested and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links will be within the GitHub link in the bottom of the description below. I don't hide my sources. But moving on, and next up we're switching from PlayStation to Xbox and talking about Xbox 360 emulation, not with Xenia, but with Xenon. And this is a new Xbox 360 low-level emulator. Now, before anyone gets overly excited about this, there are a couple of things to point out. They say here it is experimental and currently only small programs work. And they say it's an early stage emulator, so don't expect games demos to run. We're going to have to wait and see what happens moving forward with this one because at this point in time there are no official releases, and I'm very curious to see how this emulator progresses. It does seem to be a labor of love. They thank here Xenia Canary for helping find registers and understand more about how the Xbox 360 works. Shad PS4, they say a good part of the logger comes from Shad PS4 and saved us a lot of time thanks to its good quality code. RPCS3 helped us with the whole PPU part and the operation of the PowerPC architecture. And speaking about Xbox stuff, next up we're talking about Xbox on macOS with XISO GUI. And this seems to be a brand new application. They say it's a graphical interface for Extract XISO on macOS for Xbox ISOs. At the time of filming, the latest update is version 0.1.2. It does appear to be 100% free and open source. And speaking about stuff in development and file types, next up we're switching from Mac to Android here and talking about CHD. And there seems to be a brand new CHD-man port for Android called CHDBOY. Now it appears that CHDBOY is a fork of the CHD-man port for Android that Pepetto Crypto was working on. And they said there it was a heavily work in progress. Now, unfortunately, there are no releases of CHDBOY just yet, but development does seem to be very active over here on GitHub, and I'm very curious to see what happens next. And speaking about seeing what's happening next up we're talking about The Witcher, not the game, but the TV adaptation. And it appears that Liam Hemsworth has made his debut as Geralt. Taking a look at the trailer here, and the comments are not very supportive of the change from the previous guy. So taking a look at the comments here, and the top one says, "We want Henry," and this one's got a lot of likes. The one underneath it says, "It looks alright I suppose, but it's not Geralt. Liam is a fine actor, but the shoes he is trying to fill are too big. Cavill is Geralt. Liam is discount Geralt. No matter, you all butchered the lore anyway." Now, I'm not going to lie here. I'm probably going to watch this one at least an episode or two just to see how it is. But even taking a look at the trailer, I might agree that Henry Cavill left some very big shoes to fill. And Liam's Geralt here just feels different. I'm not going to try to make excuses. I'm not going to try to spin this in a positive light for the situation. Overall, I think a lot of people would have preferred Henry Cavill to carry on here, and this is just different. But honestly, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think Liam is going to live up to Henry Cavill, or is it going to feel like a different show entirely, which may not necessarily be a bad thing, it's just going to be different? Very curious to hear your thoughts. And speaking about thoughts on things, next up we're talking about Borderlands 4, and there seems to be a little bit of controversy surrounding Borderlands 4 and also surrounding Randy Pitchford. So in a series of tweets, Randy is talking about performance and things that he does to help increase performance, like turning volumetric fog off. And someone says here, or just an idea here, make your game look good without relying on AI upscale. And that seems to have triggered Randy just a little bit. I mean, Randy says, code your own engine and show us how it's done. Please, we will be your customer when you pull it off. The people doing it now are clearly dumb and don't know what they're doing, and all the support and recommendations and code and architecture from the world's greatest hardware companies and tech companies working with the world's greatest real-time graphic engine coders don't know what you seem to know. Sarcasm. That was a lot in one sentence. And the person just replied with, LMAO, touched a nerve there, Randy. Now, I could be wrong with this take. This could be a hot take, but I don't think so. I've seen a lot of reports out there regarding Borderlands 4 and optimization and performance. And check out this headline over on DSO Gaming. Borderlands 4 PC performance analysis. Terrible optimization and technical issues, even if you've got one of the world's best GPUs right now. I'd recommend checking out the DSO Gaming article for more information on the matter. But for example here, Borderlands 4 at 3840 by 2160 at badass settings, using an NVIDIA RTX 5090 gets 35 frames per second minimum and a 40 frames per second average, not even 60 FPS. Now, some people may say, you know what, 40 FPS at badass settings is pretty good, and if you want more FPS, just dial it back a little bit. And I would say yes and no. I mean, sure, that may be true, but even if you take a look at very high settings, 45 FPS is the average. At high settings, 58, not even 60 FPS is the average. At medium settings, 67 FPS, and at low settings, 80 FPS. And all of this, again, is with an RTX 5090, not a 40 series, not a 30 series GPU. I would expect this to at least get 60 frames per second in some of the highest settings. And speaking about 40 series and 30 series GPUs and other GPUs, you can expect performance is going to be worse here. I mean, the 5080 with badass settings at the same resolution gets 24 frames per second. The 4090, 33 frames per second. I mean, this is really bad in my opinion. The 3080 gets 13 frames per second. Now, dialing the resolution back a little bit and keeping the badass settings here. So going from 2160 to 1440p, and the 5090 is just getting over 60 frames per second at 66. In fact, the 4090 is sitting at 61. The 5080 is at 43. The 3080 is at 25 frames per second at 1440p. And taking a look at 1080p here, so dialing back things even more, and the 5090 is singing at 91 frames per second. Still, the 3080 at badass settings at 1080p isn't even hitting 60 either. It's at 39 frames per second. Now, on top of that, it's also being reported that the Gearbox CEO, Randy Pitchford, is suggesting refunds for Borderlands 4 players with outdated PCs. So I guess if you don't have something like a 4090 or a 5090. And taking a look over on Steam here, no surprise, Borderlands 4 is currently sitting with a mixed overall review score. I am curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, so let me know in the comments below. I mean, if you've played Borderlands 4, if you have it, is it a game worth picking up, even with these arguable performance issues? And if you've got a beefy GPU, have you been having performance issues, or have you been experiencing the game absolutely fine? I'd really like to know. And speaking about games and development, next up we're talking about Balatro. First and foremost, no, Balatro does not have problems with running the game at high resolutions, at least not for me. Anyways here, in terms of the next update for Balatro, things look like they're taking time, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So LocalFunk has a brand new post up about Balatro titled I'm Slow, and they say here, I have some unfortunate news. The promised 2025 Balatro 1.1 update isn't going to come out in 2025. I know I announced that it would, but it has become clear now that it won't happen by the end of the year, and I wanted to tell you all that now. I feel bad for not keeping that promise, and I'm sorry. So at a high level here, basically they say back in 2024, after the release of the game and the update and the mobile port and all of that, they were burned out. And instead of working like 12 hours per day on the game, they're now working just a few hours and taking a more hobbyist approach. And I would argue that is good for their passion of the game overall and not getting burned out. I mean, they say right here, I am working slowly, but I like it that way. I love getting sucked into rabbit holes and I don't like trying to force things creatively. I have never before Balatro set a deadline for any of my creative projects, and I now realize how important that is for my process. I am in a very lucky position that I can choose to work on this job however I wish, and I think the best version of work for me is the version that makes me want to come back to my keyboard every day, healthy and hopefully just as excited about a game development 5 years from now as I am today. I would agree with this, and let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, but I'm in no rush for a Balatro 1.1 update. Am I excited about it? Heck yes. But at the same time here, I want a good update, not a rushed update. And I want an update that seems like it was made with passion from the developer. Let me know your thoughts. And speaking about announcements, next up here, we're talking about Teknoparrot, which is an online freemium arcade emulation project. And Teknoparrot just had a big announcement here. Teknoparrot Online is now free for everyone, as voted by our subscribers. Jump online with your friends in just a few clicks. No VPNs, no tunnels, no port forwarding, and no test menu hassle. And as for the games that are available now, I would say that there are some pretty heavy hitters. I mean, Initial D48, Sega Racing Classic, Sega Rally 3, Outrun 2 SPSDX, Ford Racing, Cars, Arctic Thunder, Ultimate Arctic Thunder, Mario Kart Arcade GP DX, Puyo Puyo Esports, Virtua Fighter Esports, Dead or Alive 6, Pokken Tournament, Ultra Street Fighter 4. And there's even more here. I mean, this is quite a big list to begin with. And speaking about announcements, next up here we're talking about PopoRogue, which is a role-playing game for the PlayStation with dungeon crawler elements, a direct sequel to Popo Lo Kroi Monogatari. I might have mispronounced that one. Anyways here, there's a brand new fan translation for this game to English. And speaking about fun announcements, next up we're talking about Darkenstein 3D, which is releasing on October 21st. And they say here, Darkenstein 3D is a love letter to the old Wolfenstein games, a humorous but skillful journey to rescue your dog from the hands of the Axis. And it is releasing on October 21st, 2025, and it will be free, no tricks. If you're interested in free games and free games that look really interesting and possibly very fun to play, this might be worth checking out. And speaking about friendly heads ups about stuff, next up we're quickly talking about Sega Saturn emulation on the Mr. FPGA. And this is more of just a clear the air of some misinformation that's currently out there. I've received a bunch of pings about this asking me to talk about it, so here we are. Anyways, Pirate Nation tweets out, Saturn now has 100% perfect hardware emulation. What has historically been one of the absolute hardest platforms to emulate now has completely 100% hardware accurate emulation, thanks to the Mr. FPGA. And that is not really true. Now, this information has been circling around quite a bit. I mean, even Joe Tago, who's an FPGA developer, says this has been an awesome feat that has taken several years of work, and thanked the developer of that Saturn FPGA core. Well, the developer of that Saturn FPGA core responded and said that's not entirely true, still far from complete accuracy. So overall here, while I'd say the core isn't in a 100% accurate state, and some people might be disappointed to hear that, I would say the core is in a very good state overall, a very impressive state, all things considered. And speaking about clarifications on things, last up here we're talking about Bazzite. Now, for those who may or may not be aware, Bazzite is one of my favorite Linux distributions. I've got a lot of favorites, but Bazzite is definitely one of them. It's based on Fedora, it's immutable, so it's really hard to screw up, and it's gaming focused. I think it's fantastic. Anyways here, Bazzite has a tweet that had a lot of people talking and a lot of people asking me what exactly this means. They tweeted out, 1 month remains, and some people were asking, what, 1 month until an upgrade, 1 month until a big announcement, 1 month until what? And I've got the answer for you, and it's not necessarily anything exciting. You might be upset about this, but it's 1 month until the end of support for Windows 10. So as a friendly heads up here, if you are on Windows 10, Windows 10 support ends on October 14th, 2025, so in about a month's time. And that's the big news. I'm very curious to see what happens after that if a lot of people switch to Linux because they don't want Windows 11. or if people continue using Windows 10 even though it's unsupported, which I'm assuming a lot of people will keep using it. Now, I would say here that one of the very big risks of continuing on to use Windows 10 after support is done is the security aspect. If it's not receiving any more security updates, it could be extremely vulnerable. And I would assume a lot of bad actors are going to target Windows 10 right away, considering nothing is going to be patched to fix it. Unfortunately, I don't know what those vulnerabilities are. I don't know if they're going to be successful, but I'm assuming that they'd be very interested in targeting Windows 10 right away, considering there's probably going to be a huge user base on it. Could be wrong with that, hope I'm wrong with that, but I'm probably not going to be wrong. Anyways, moral of this story is that if you're on Windows 10 and you're debating on whether or not to upgrade to Windows 11, or you can't upgrade to Windows 11, or you just don't want to, Linux is a very good option, at least in my opinion. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.